not going to do it. No, wait! Get behind me. I'm not through with you yet. I'm putting out. Oh, look at that, it's your little friend. Let's watch the sign together, shall we? No! It's game over for both of you. No. Just for I'm bad, but that's good. I'll never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me. Why are you going into the law? No, no. Yeah, no. Go into the
One of these days, I'm going to figure out how this shit works. But in the meantime, I'm starting a couple minutes early because, because. I know I've been gone for a hot minute because, well, first of all, my computer died completely. So my ability to actually do anything was extremely limited. I gotta check something here. Okay. My ability to do anything was extremely limited, and this is actually not my computer. This is my daughter's computer. When she passed away, it became Dad's computer, so I can only use it when I'm at his place. Life sucks. So I was perusing Facebook, I think it was, and I saw something that really, really bothers me. Now, actually, let's just go ahead and do it. First, let's mute this long enough for me to get it up on screen. Like I said, one of these days I will be able to do this and know what I'm doing. Anyway. Right. I would like you to watch this and tell me what you see. This is Nick Shirley, never heard of him before this, exposes protesters.
We're confronting these anti-Trump and anti-Elon Musk protesters, seeing what they're protesting for. Let's see who we can get up here. Wow.
I just want to remind you of protest procedure. Don't film unless it's consent of anyone's faces. And we'd ask if you
We're on public property, though, so we can film.
Are you part of the protest? Are you?
Of course, I'm here. Hey, easy, dude. You don't have our consent to do this.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me!
Whoa.
Don't touch me!
I didn't touch you for nothing.
You touched me! Don't touch me!
You want some money? He's touching him.
Get someone around these people, please.
Oh, easy.
Elbows!
Easy.
Elbows!
Easy.
No.
Easy.
Oh, we're not here.
Wait. Whoa.
Police!
What? Get the police. What did I do?
Don't feed the trolls. Elbows around.
Elbows around. Holy cow. Don't let me go. What are you going to do?
Elbows.
Elbows. Man, we are peaceful. What the hell is going on out here? Watch, he can't keep running. Okay, what is going on, everybody? Look, we got a crowd coming. Dude, you touched me. Bro, get off me. He's touching me. I know I'm attracted, but I'm not that attracted to be following me like stink on poo. Come on, man, get off me.
Get off the property. Go.
Man, stop following me. Bro, what are you doing? Continue on
security. He's not allowed to be here.
I know security. I could have brought construction vets as well.
I thought you were trying to fight for our country.
I am fighting for our country.
Okay.
You guys, get off me. I ain't no agitator. He's not agitating me. Man, I came in a suit to be respectful for you guys today. Oh, geez, are you moaning, sir? Not the moan. He's riding up on me. No, this guy has a mask. How you guys doing?
Donald Trump wasn't president.
Look at it. We got their microphone. They freak out. Robbie. You look like a fool. You know that's who you are? A freaking fool. I am. I'm looking professional. Oh my god. Bro, you are. I'm not. What is going on? This guy's a lunatic. What are you guys doing? Get your hands off me, little Antifa boy. Get the police officer these fools. Officer, these guys, where did your one little boy go? I have every right to be here.
You guys can go do what you're doing. Let him walk away.
He's not walking away.
I try to walk everywhere here and you just follow me everywhere I go.
Because you're shoving microphones in people's face.
I haven't done it once.
You've done it a million times.
Okay. That's not working properly, and I don't know why. There we go. Still not working properly. Let's try it. Just doing it the hard way. Because God forbid, put the settings one way and they just sort of leave them that way, but no, anyway. Whatever. And they just put it right back the way I said I did not want it. But okay. So anyway, this was a video I found. I've never heard of Nick Shirley. I have no opinion of him one way or another. I do have a few opinions about what I saw there. And, well, yeah, okay. I want to read something to you, though. First, I want you to think about what you just saw. Okay? Take a long, long thought. All right, you ready? I don't know where this happened. So I kind of have to go with the best law I have, which would be Nevada. There we go. This is Nevada NRS section 200.460. You commit the Nevada crime of false imprisonment if you restrict someone else's freedom of movement without justification or legal authority. Common examples are not letting a person leave a room or cornering somebody against the wall. Work on your verbiage. False imprisonment is a crime in Nevada. It can also be the basis for a civil lawsuit for damages. Well, okay, that's fine. Penalties. Violating NRS 200.460 is typically prosecuted as a gross misdemeanor in Nevada, carrying a maximum of $2,000 in fine and or 364 days in jail. False imprisonment also becomes a Category B felony, potentially carrying years in state prison if you use a deadly weapon, you use the victim as a human shield to avoid arrest, or you are an inmate. However, prosecutors may agree to plea bargain the charges down to a lesser offense or possibly a dismissal. Now, this is from a law firm, so take it with a small grain of salt. I want you to go back and just watch what I saw again. This time we're going to run it with the audio off. All right. So here he is. He's telling you he's at this anti-Elon protest. And okay, this appears to be DC. I could be mistaken. They're on public property. Now, it says this isn't Burning Man, dude. Burning Man happens on entirely private property, right? They pay the tax, and that's it. And I'm not even totally sure where it happens, but it is entirely private property, and that's part of the way they control the crowd. Right. So, yellow vest here is saying, "I don't touch me." He didn't touch him, so I don't know what your problem is. All right, check this out. Elbows, circle 3 times. Circle, 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 blocks camera. Someone get the police. What? Get the police? What did I do? All right, so now he's moving away from the situation, and this guy runs right up to him. Starts saying elbows and demanding that people help him corner this guy. Now he's running. Okay, now right here we see Nick hit the brakes, and the guy behind him ran right into him. Sorry about that. And the guy ran right into him. Now, I can let this one go because Nick knew that this guy was going to run into him, and this guy knew the moment Nick stopped that he was going to run into him. So I'd call this one mutual combat. We're going to let that one go. Get off the property. This is public property. You cannot demand somebody leave public property. I'm part of security. Well, he might be event staff, and he might have been assigned to security. That's neither here nor there. But here's a few more, and now they're starting to actually surround him. I don't care about the theatrics any more than I do the theatrics of slamming on the brakes and then running him over, or trying to run him over anyway. But look at this. They are now surrounding him and restricting his ability to move. Now, Nick's going along with this, so great, good for him. Whoa, what's that? That is very much an assault and battery. And they're tightening up this. Oh, Yellow Vest actually physically grabbed him and held on to him. That is kidnapping. Folks, this was kidnapping. He's being held against his will. He's being forced to move. This is kidnapping. All right. Now, could I make that hold up in court? Maybe not. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. I was actually following the video in the other window. And I mean, they told every single lie that they could think of. You've done it. You shoved your microphone in people's faces. He didn't shove his microphone in anybody's face. All right. He did hold it up and let them say what they wanted to. That's not shoving a microphone in anybody's face. And he didn't even point the camera at anybody other than himself. So if you got on camera, that's because you were behind him, or at least at that angle. When you are on public property, whatever you can see is legitimately public view. And it actually has a big legal term that I forget from my law enforcement days. Plain view. If you are on public property, anything you can see from there is plain view. This is all public property. You can't claim that it's limited access or something just because you don't like the guy doing it. Okay, there we are. Absolutely not. This shit just never stops. There is a unique little part of my proposal that, there's three basic kinds of exemptions. There's the mandatory exemptions, which is where the law itself says whether the state really wants to exempt you or not, whether the judge wants to exempt you or not, you have to be exempt. They have no choice. They are compelled to walk away and let you go. Right? This would be like if you jaywalk on a long country road. Right? There is no sidewalk, and there may not be any edge to the road to speak of, so you have to walk in between the two sets of white line. Well, the two white lines. That's jaywalking, right? That's the designated vehicle area. That makes it jaywalking. And now you're out on this country road where there's 2 inches off the edge of the white line and a sheer cliff about 12 feet up and a 60-degree angle behind that. All right. You have no choice. You have to walk in between the 2 white lines. All right. The cop that saw you doing that has to just let it down. They may stop. They may ask you a bunch of questions. They can't cite you at that point. All right. That is actually black letter law in most of the states, all the ones I'm familiar with. That's a mandatory exemption. One of those mandatory exemptions, there's 7 of them. 6 of them, at least hypothetically, some point down the road, you may get into a state where this exemption no longer applies to you, and you go back to the courthouse and say, Your Honor, I'd like to have my mandatory exemption lifted because I was able to pass an IQ test because something in my brain just snapped into place, or I got a new prosthetic that it lets me do all of the things I need to do to be able to handle a gun. Those are 2 of them. Or, yes, Your Honor, I beat somebody. I beat him really, really badly, but I've been through anger management. I did my time. I'm better now. All right. And the judge says, you know what? You're right. I agree. You are better now. I'm lifting you of your mandatory exemption. Right. There's one you can never lift. Once you get it, you have to actually go back to court and say, Your Honor, it wasn't actually me. And I can prove it wasn't me because I was sitting in a Tallahassee jail, or I was in the hospital. I've got my discharge papers to show you, or this or that or something else. That is the violent political protester exemption. Now, the situation in Nick's case appears to be that they were holding a rally, an anti-Elon rally. So far, so good. It's not listed as a violent political protest. Yes, it's a call for violence, but that's kind of nebulous. Could I really make that case to the judge? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. But the security raised it to that standard rather than just say, hey, we need you to leave. You're going to cause a problem. Rather than do a million other things, including just stand there, follow him, watch him, wait for him to screw up, and then do all the things they want to do. He went hands-on right away. Oops. That made it a violent political protest. The call for reinforcements to have him surrounded turned it into an unlawful detention. And because this unlawful detention forced him to move around, and the one guard actually grabbed him and picked him up, that's kidnapping. Not just assault and battery, because the bear hug, the actual kidnap, that's not even assault. Assault is any action or statement indicating to the target's mind that you intend to cause them violence. If I swing at you and miss, that's assault. If I tell you I'm going to fucking beat your ass right here and now, that's assault. All right? If I just start swinging and don't warn you and don't anything you, it's no assault. It's just battery. And a great example from my college days, 1994 or 5, the instructor stood behind another student and swung his hand behind the guy's head and asked, "What is this?" after having just explained the difference between assault and battery. And it was absolutely nothing. He's just swinging his hand behind the guy's head, right? Didn't see it, didn't hear anything, and there was no contact. It's nothing. All right. That was a violent political protest. It may not have started out that way. It was a call to violence. Okay, fine. Until somebody acts on it, I think we can maybe call a little bit of a nebulous call to violence. The moment this guy started and laying hands, especially, or pushing him, shoving him, this absolutely ridiculously false allegation, stop touching me. I didn't touch you. No, he didn't touch you. All right. I'd be afraid to. Yeah, I just said what I just said. Fuck you. All right. So that was that. Let me make sure I got everything else that I wanted to. All of the other little bits. Not even sure what that is. Sorry, this was kind of random, so. Well, that's actually the name of the stream, isn't it? Random stream. Oh, yeah, no. Okay. All right. Partly to kill some time and partly because it is kind of funny. I want to show you something else that I found on YouTube. This is from The Mandalorian. And it actually does have a purpose for me sharing it. This is Din Darjin approaching an aerospace port.
Excuse me, son. You're going to have to remove your weapons.
I'm a Mandalorian. Weapons are part of my religion.
I'm sorry, son. You can't board the commercial flight with your weapons. If you wish to discuss this with my supervisor, I will gladly book you on tomorrow's flight.
Fine. I know everything that's in there.
Not fine.
Okay. So, it's not unknown that they use real weapons as in filming as a frame for something else. One of those was a Liberator from World War II. It's a single-shot, smooth-bore firearm, bolt action, by the way, handgun. The idea was you put a round in, you put it up against the back of the head of a Nazi soldier, pull the trigger, take his guns, and take his rifle, and if you think you got time, take his belt as well. And then now you've got German guns to fight the Germans. I liked seeing that little detail. There's also a Bergman, for those of you that are a little bit more familiar with more historic weapons. At any rate, okay, was that it? That was not it. What was the... Okay, next subject. And there's actually somebody I wish had seen the invite and come on in because I really wanted to talk to him about this. Everybody's all excited about the big, beautiful bill and how it has re-legalized suppressors, silencers, cans, or whatever you want to call them. This is the big win. This is actually a loss. Let me tell you why. First of all, this is a spending bill. They can turn around and in 6 years or 6 months or whatever, just write a federal law that specifically bans them. We're right back where we were before. All right. The thing about the federal laws is you can always change them later. It may take more time. It may take less time. It may a lot of things, but you can always turn around and get them changed later. And you can put a rider on a spending bill next year that rebans them, and all of a sudden, all of those silencers that you thought were perfectly fine, ATF is knocking at your door. It's happened to me. All right, I bought something that at the time was legal, a Glock switch kit, by the way. It was 80% finished. ATF had not ruled on these yet, right? So it's legal for now. And then they made the ruling, and ATF is knocking at my door saying, "Hey, we want your kit back." Oh, they got me for the bump stock too. Well, unfortunately, those have been stolen, and I threw my ex-girlfriend right under the bus. I never heard back from them, so I assumed that they went go talk to her. what can I say? She stole them. At any rate, the ATF is going to be knocking at your door now in about 2 years, I think, saying, "Hey, we want your cans." They're not even going to say your suppressors or your silencers or whatever, or we need you to bring them in or whatever. They're going to say, "Nope, you got to bring them in." That's literally the way they're going. That's the way the agent I talked to opened up the conversation with me. Hey, I need you to bring something in. It was legal when he even acknowledged it was legal when you bought it, but it's not legal now. Oh, oh, excuse me. Moreover, this is not a win because very, very quickly they're going to have a list of who did and didn't have. And I kind of got this feeling in the back of my head that was the entire purpose. Get a list of everybody who has them because they have them legally now. And then when the time comes, go in and swoop them all up. You know, the classic registration leads to confiscation argument. Oh, shit. Nobody ever thinks about that. Oh, we have this big win. No, you don't. That Glock switch kit, which, by the way, I never did get around to finishing. How did they get my name? How did they know who I was? Well, because I didn't pay in cash. Nobody did. There's no way to pay in cash with that outfit. So the moment it was declared illegal, they just swooped into the company and took all those records. Oh my. Or maybe, well, no, my bank wouldn't have reported it because I don't use Citi or Chase or one of the other Operation Choke Point. I had Citibank for corporate purposes at one point, and then they joined Operation Choke Point, and we're like, nope, we're out of here. Weird part is, I never bought a gun under HLS name or the card. It was literally just for that business. So for those of you that are crowing about this big, beautiful bill, yeah, well, when you're crying later, don't come running to me. Why didn't you warn us? I did. You didn't listen. The only way to stop this train is to set it absolutely at the constitutional level and say, you know what? We acknowledge the founders made a mistake. We do. We acknowledge the founders should have set a standard that could never, ever be torn down. Couldn't be chiseled away or picked away at. And then they give you breadcrumbs of big, beautiful bill giving you your suppressors back. Damn it. I'm doing that a lot. That leads straight to the witch's gingerbread house. And she doesn't even have to hold you and fatten you up for the oven. All right. You're going to do that all by yourself. You're going to race out and buy a dozen even unfinished, what is it they call those things? Solvent traps. You're going to buy a half a dozen solvent traps and you think, oh, yeah, I got one over on the feds. And no, they go in 6-8 months, a couple of years, whatever later, and go through the sales records, and they know exactly who you are. Oh, oops. Yes, you kind of fucked yourself there, didn't you? Sorry. You thought you were being so smart. You thought, oh yeah, we got this one. Yeah, no. All you doing is picking up the breadcrumbs into the witch's cottage. Good job. Congratulations. What we need is a standard that can never be torn down. Give me a second. Believe it or not, I have not memorized this nearly as well as some other people. Had the founders foreseen the future, they would have written a very different Second Amendment. A well-protected public being necessary to the security of a free state, the duty of the people to keep and bear arms shall be enforced. On a related point, the first purpose of the Second Amendment was not to stand up to a tyrannical government, because the founders didn't really foresee that as a probable scenario. They put safeguards in place to prevent exactly that. All right. For those of you that say we're not a democracy, well, yes, actually we are a democracy. That's not the point. We're a republic. Well, actually that's a good point too. A republic is a matter public. Everything is public. And there are safeguards and checks and balances against abuses. It doesn't matter if 100% of Congress votes for a law, right? That's part of the reason Congress is two parts. There's the House of Representatives and the Senate. And it has to go through both in order to be a law. And it doesn't matter if 100% of both houses agree that, yes, this is a good law. And, out of, what is it, currently 1,449? 50 if you count the vice president. All vote yes, and maybe you get one present, or one or two no vote, or what is it? Abstain. Abstention votes, because they have a conflict of interest, and you don't want to be on record for the rest of your life with a conflict of interest vote. Okay, that's fine. We all get that, right? So out of 1,540 people, you have, or 1,549 people, 50 people, you have 1,440 yeses and no nays. Sounds great. Whatever this law was, it's a great law. And the president signs it. He's literally standing there waiting for the Speaker of the House, or the President pro tem, which is the Vice President, by the way, to have the sheet of paper with the yays on it to hand over, right? And signs it right then and there, gleefully, right? And then it goes in front of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do this. This is actually a violation of the Constitution. That's the reason why we have basically 4 branches of government. We actually have 3 branches: the executive, the president, the legislative, and the judicial, Supreme Court. But the legislative is 2 parts, and it's got to get through both parts. This is all about that checks and balances thing. At the end of the day, though, even that runs afoul of certain things. The 1934 National Firearms Act was passed in haste, without full consideration of the long-term effects. All right. It was passed. Yes, I know the whole of the Roaring '20s was the backdrop. But at the end of the day, what really got it done was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. One incident was the final straw, and it wasn't even the final straw. It was most of the gold on that camel's back that got it passed. Excuse me. It was most of the goal to get that law passed, right? But they didn't really think about what they were doing. First of all, they didn't even have half the language that they needed. They say machine gun, machine gun, machine gun. Everything's a machine gun. So if you redefine or if you label something a new term that didn't exist at the time of X, all of a sudden it's not X. It's Y, even though the fundamental characteristics are all exactly the same. Because it's got this clever new name on it, it's not X. Let's talk about sniper rifles. All right. First of all, define sniper rifle. Well, okay. The Army does actually have a set standard for a sniper rifle. All right. That is a thing. But 90% of all U.S. military sniper rifles started out as hunting rifles. They were never conceived in a drafter or an engineer or a product development guy's mind as a sniper rifle. They were conceived as a hunting rifle. As a matter of fact, all of the sniper rifles of the Revolution were hunting rifles. Most people don't realize that. The snipers were all backwoodsmen whose family depended on them being able to take down an elk at 20 yards with a single shot, and reliably, so that they didn't have to spend 3 days following that elk until it died. They could follow it 10, 15, 20 yards until it died. And that was their family's survival. So they had to be good. Then the war came, and they took their hunting rifles with them. Those were the sniper rifles. Hey, Sapient. Long time no see, bud. You been sick? What's going on? Sorry, folks. One of the few people I really talk to because I can. He's been a very, very helpful person over the years. I don't call anybody a friend because that's an F word. But yeah. Okay, so all of those sniper rifles started out as hunting rifles. Well, if you have a sniper rifle and you just call it a hunting rifle, all of a sudden it's not a sniper rifle, it's a hunting rifle. Yeah, a 50 caliber hunting rifle. Okay. Well, the 50 caliber BMG, Browning machine gun round, started out as an anti-tank round in World War I. John Browning drew inspiration. The U.S. Army got their hands on these 14 millimeter rifle round, 14 millimeter rifles, the tank Guevara, turned to John Browning and said, "Hey, we want something like this, only we want a machine gun." And John Browning had this, and basically he's been told, do this thing. So he takes his own design, the M1917, I think it was, and says, well, I could scale it up. Oh, wait, I can't quite scale it up that way. I gotta play with these numbers a little bit. And he came out with what is now the M2 machine gun, the classic Ma Deuce. I fired the M2. if you don't have instructors standing on your shoulder judging you, it can be a lot of fun, right? Because I did have instructors standing on me, judging me. Well, didn't I didn't have any fun that day, those days. The time it was fun was when I was out on the boat. You know, the bolt action machine gun story. Yeah, well, earlier in the day I had fired an M2, and that actually was fun. Um, Run, motherfucker, run. Was not as much fun. I think I would have been having a much better day if I just went full bore like the GMs did at the end of that shoot. Fuck you assholes. But it is what it is. The M2 now exists because of that. Oh, excuse me. Only 46 minutes, okay. Right. Wandering Trail later. The Big Beautiful Bill's repeal on silencers is not a win. It's not a win at all. All right. We need to have something that simply cannot be infringed upon. We're going to have to get it down to the point where even spelling is important. There will come a day when the 50 caliber no longer qualifies as an armor penetrator. Well, that day's actually come and gone, but there will come a day when it no longer qualifies as a body armor penetrator. Oh, wait, that day's come and gone too, hasn't it? Actually, not entirely. The heavy armor that I was Interceptor 2, I think it was, that I was issued at the PSU, is no longer considered a armor penetrator because it will not penetrate body armor in 2 shots. That could absorb 2 shots of 50 caliber rifle rounds. Yeah, you'd still be dead. Getting hit by that much metal, you're getting hit by a sledgehammer, and then you're getting hit by a sledgehammer twice. What you're going to have is the courtesy of an open casket funeral. All right. But you might actually survive 1 shot. I know that that's never really been tested, or at least it hadn't been tested properly by the time I got out. There was another company that no longer exists, and that's a shame, that had body armor that could survive 1 shot. It was available to the civilian market. Excuse me. I swear, folks, I'm totally sober. It was available on the civilian market. I have a set. And Jerry Mishlik, please forgive me, sir, that I butcher your name, tested it. I assume it was his M82 that he tested the armor with. 2 rounds did not penetrate. If 2 rounds cannot penetrate, then 9 out of 10 can't. All right. Well, and that's that could be interpreted. You know, you fire a 3rd time. Well, you know, it's great. Now it's penetrating, right? Well, no, it's 10 sets. Each one's shot once. If it goes through 9 out of those 10 times, it's an armor penetrator. If 2 of them hold up, it's not an armor penetrator. And if one of them can hold up to 2. Chances are 9 out of those 10 will hold up. Chances are 10 out of those 10 will hold up to the first shot. Chances are 9 out of those 10 will hold up to the second shot. And the 10th one, you may have had one bad set or one hot round or something, and then you stick a thumb in it. At any rate, that is the standard. So 50 caliber may no longer qualify, well, doesn't qualify as an armor penetrator anymore. Could it be modified to be an armored? Sure, that's possible. Would it ever penetrate frontal tank armor, which is what the purpose was? No, not anymore. By the time World War II started, the armor had improved to the point where the 50 cal wasn't going to get it done. It might have penetrated engine. Well, they did penetrate engine compartment armor. They did penetrate sometimes magazine armor. I know that there's a story, and I've talked to the guy out of Iraq where an insurgent fired on a tank and got some sort of either very lucky or very, very skilled shot and degraded an M1 Abrams' ability to maneuver. All right. She was stuck. All right. So they had to run a couple tanks through the building they suspected the sniper was hiding in. Or, well, excuse me, they had to run a tank through the building they suspected the sniper was in to get it to collapse. I want to say this was not in Fallujah. This was closer to the Baghdad area. And I can't really... but Jesus Christ, I heard the story like 8 years ago. Bear with me. But yeah, they couldn't actually get the sniper, so they just finally got fed up, and somebody got fed up. Ran a tank through the bottom of the building that caused it to collapse. And the tankers somehow were okay. Listen, this story really has always struck me as kind of weird. Like, you ran a tank through a building? Is that even possible? Well, I guess, yeah, actually it is. The building collapsed on you and you didn't die? Well, possibly. And it's also possible that there's a little bit of interpolation involved. All right, he was there. The tank did go through the building. It was out the other side before the building collapsed, but because of where he was sitting, it looked like the building collapsed on the tank. These are things I don't know. But at any rate, right. The insurgent with 50 cal was able to damage a tank to the point where this whole column was stuck, and until they got him. One thing that never really fully made sense is you've got a tank. Why don't you just put a tank round in the building where you think he is? I guess I wish I thought to ask that at the time. But at any rate. All right. Be watching the channel a little bit. There is something coming. I have to open in another tab. Matter of fact, I have to do something related to that tab as soon as I'm done here. Well, it's going to be a big deal, right? I think everybody's going to be very happy and say thank you, Carrie, for letting us know. It's it's $50, but I think it'd be worth it. And by the way, I'm not going to make any money off of it. That sucks for me. But at any rate, all right. Sorry about the wife beater, folks, but I had to change shirts. I was really hoping I could get somebody in here so I could switch during that. All right. Don't outlaw the silencer. I think he's referring to the weapon of the Robotech Masters. I could be mistaken. Oh, yeah. That reminds me of an issue related to Dataslav. Technology is going to change, and the idea of an assault weapon to the founders, well, actually, that wasn't new or novel at all, right? The argument, they could never have foreseen the AR-15. Actually, yes, they could. They had a version of their own already. All right. But technology does change. It advances, it evolves. There's actually a specific part of the Constitution, I wish I'd thought about this, that says that the federal government will support useful scientific advances for the public, for the public good. And I can't remember the exact verbiage, and I'm not going to go Googling that at the moment. It's there. Actually, spelling doesn't matter that much until it's voted on. But at any rate, I had to write Dataslav in such a way that it allowed for that advancement in the future without locking everything into what currently is. All right. That's why it says energized force. It doesn't say controlled explosion. It doesn't say explosion. It doesn't say anything like that. Railgun or Gauss rifle or Gauss gun or whatever the fuck you want to call it. The proper term is railgun, by the way. Is every bit as much a firearm as an AR-15 or a black powder musket under Dataslav. And the way those work, by the way, is a series of electromagnets down a tube, which is really all it is, draws a piece of metal, or more often, it seems, a piece of polycarbonate, which is not exactly the same as a plastic in some cases, and in these cases specifically, with metal shavings embedded in them, or some sort of magnetically affected object in it, pulls that down the barrel, and the U.S. Navy test fired one last year, I believe it was, late like October, November, somewhere around there. They figured out we can't make it work. The Japanese, on the other hand, did. Another one is the blasters from Star Wars. And I say Star Wars because they're actually more unique to the Star Wars universe. A blaster uses electricity to ionize gases that are then directed towards a target. On paper, this should be horrifically terrible, but there would be a way of potentially controlling the direction of the bolt, the blaster bolt. I don't want to discuss the hows at the moment because that would dox me, unfortunately. Although there's a couple people that if I get them backstage, I'd love to talk to them about that. Oh, excuse me. The phasers of the phasers and disruptors of the Star Trek universe. All of these are things that do not currently exist, sort of, but will someday. And I didn't want to set up a scenario where, because it didn't exist at the time that the revised Second Amendment was passed, ratified, whatever you want to call it here, that it can never exist, right? It's the Massachusetts scenario. For those of you that don't know, Massachusetts banned pepper spray, stun guns. I think they banned certain types of batons, but yeah, if I'm mistaken, go ahead and let me know. They banned like a half dozen non-lethal and lethal weapons because they didn't exist at the time of the Second Amendment. Now, a few years ago, the Supreme Court turned around and said, no. Piss off that shit. But it was still this 5-6 year long delay in those going out to the public because nobody's allowed to have them at this time. It had to get through the court system. I needed to make sure that that door was not closed, right? Well, the door wasn't closed. And the only way I could think to do it was to give this really vague, broad definition. Would a crossbow qualify as a firearm? Could. That's theoretically plausible. I don't think anybody would actually be stupid enough to go that route. But somebody may actually come up with something sufficiently unique and original that we didn't even. Well, I can think of something off the top of my head. It was a gun used by the. Well, it wasn't a gun. It was a round used by the OSS during World War II. A piston inside of a dart. Crank the hammer back, squeeze the trigger, the hammer hits the piston goes forward, hits the head, the dart goes flying. It wasn't actually that great a thing. There's a reason why the gun would also be loaded with regular 45 caliber ammo underneath that, but it was good for one shot at a short range. That's something nobody's thought of before or since that I know of. And so that's a unique thing. Constitution is default. Allow for freedom with specific exemptions, those disingenuous pricks. You know, the Constitution was never meant to allow you to create a problem by abusing it, right? To paraphrase Chief Justice, not Rehnquist and not Roberts, Holmes, Wendell Holmes, you cannot shout fire in a crowded theater when there is, in fact, no fire. Actually, that's not a paraphrase. You can't create the problem. Now, you could create something new and say, hey, I don't know where this goes. Maybe I should think very carefully and proceed with caution. The Glock switch, for example. All right. This was a new and novel idea. Creating the Glock switch was not a new or novel idea. That was something I kind of knew was a thing, but I didn't know how it worked. 3-4 years earlier. that involved sliding a piece of very thin steel in under the slide, the upper receiver. What was new and novel was the 80% aspect. It was only 80% finished. So is it really a conversion kit? Well, no, until the ATF said, well, actually, we changed our mind. It is. It was intended to protect what needed to be protected. You can yell fire in a crowded theater if you legitimately believe there's a fire. There's the discovery later that you were mistaken is not a crime, especially if it was a mistake that was intentionally created. You know, like somebody stuffed a smoke bomb in the FICA plant pot. That's an actual thing. Somebody tried to, somebody did stuff a smoke bomb into a FICA plant pot at a theater when I was living in Oregon. And unfortunately, the joke didn't work out quite the way she thought it would. She ended up in a lot of trouble, especially since it did create a panic in a theater that wasn't crowded. She was very lucky in that regard. And what I always step back and say, wait a second, why do you want this or that thing? Why do you want this restriction? Does it make sense? The first time I ever asked myself that question was the 1991 assault weapons ban, or 94, whatever. Was the 94 assault weapons ban proposed by then Senator Joseph Biden of Massachusetts and signed into law by then President Bill Clinton. They kept saying assault weapon. And I said, you're not banning assault weapons. This doesn't make sense to me. Everybody knows an assault weapon has to have, it has to be fully automatic. That was also when I realized I really hate saying fully automatic. It's redundant and repetitive. You ever notice that about me? I don't say fully automatic. I say semi-automatic and automatic. And I avoid fully automatic because it's repetitive and redundant. But at any rate, everybody knows it has to be fully automatic. This doesn't make any sense to me. In 1994, I was also saying to myself, well, okay, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just deal with this for now. It's 10 years. The NRA is backing it. Most people don't realize the NRA was fighting the 94 AWB for like 6-8 months until that 10-year sunset clause was put on it. And people on both sides love to point out the NRA supported the assault weapons ban. No, they fought it until that sunset clause was put on it. And then they didn't give it any, their support. They just said, okay, you know what? We're going to deal with this as it is, wait the 10 years, and then fight the next one. Or, well, it bought them 10 years to figure out a plan, which I think their real plan was fundraising to fight the next one. Okay, that's fairly understandable. And don't forget repetitive and redundant there, Sapient. That's when they stopped fighting it. They never actually gave their blessing. They just said, we're not going to fight it anymore. We're going to let this thing happen. And that was my attitude. Okay, you know what? Let's do this thing and see what happens. And in 10 years, we'll know. Well, halfway through, was Columbine. I know it was halfway through because I went into the Coast Guard in 1999, right? It was when I was going through MEPS that Columbine happened. Ooh, excuse me, folks. So we know beyond question or doubt that no, it did not work. It was never going to work to begin with. And that was just the absolute fucking incontrovertible worldwide live television proof. It didn't work. It never would have worked. Most people don't realize the Australian gun ban actually did not work out the way they thought it would. And this is going to piss some people off, and I don't care. It's the truth. The 1995, I think it was, National Firearms Agreement in Australia essentially banned all self-loader and pump-action firearms. Okay, well that's great. That really did a lot of good, right? Well, it was in the wake of the Port Arthur massacre, and not to denigrate the event any. Port Arthur was actually bad. That made international news. Hell, I even heard about it. I remember thinking, Australia? No. You mean somewhere else? I had to actually have somebody show me. No. Look, this is one of the earliest reports I have on it. Look, it's Australia. They don't have guns down there, right? I remember that's what I was thinking. Australia, they don't have any guns down there. They banned them years ago, didn't they? No. Oops. Things went along actually really, really good for about 5 years under the Australian gun ban. What happened was firearm suicides dropped. And I don't mean 1 or 2%. I'm talking massive. 50? Yeah, well, actually, the year after that ban went into effect, basically there were no gun suicides in Australia. Like 100, maybe, versus a couple thousand. Wow, that's a huge change, isn't it? Yeah, well, you watch and by the way, all suicides dropped precipitously during that first year. You watch the suicide trends for Australia for the next 5 years, and it creeps up and up and up. Now, the gun suicide rate, if I recall from the last time I looked into this, really didn't change any, right? Guns are not the means for suicide in Australia. There are other ways to do the same thing, and the numbers after 5 years went back up to pre-ban levels. Oh. The pre- and post-ban gun murder rates basically remained unchanged for a few years, right? And then they rose. Now, it's a tiny rise. I mean, the way I remember it, which the last time I looked into this was just after the pandemic hit. It's a tiny rise, single digits, maybe 5-6%. But that's 5-6% rise in gun murders and 0% rise in any other gun use. About the same time, I did a study on Britain versus the United States. All gun deaths versus all gun murders. The last year I could get all of the data for was 2017, and bear with me, I can't remember the numbers now. But I had to sit there and figure out how many of these United States gun deaths were murders, suicides, justifiable and excusable homicides, and accidents. I had justifiable homicide, justifiable homicide is self-defense or defense of others. You see some guy walking down the street, shooting random people, and you run him over with your car. That's justifiable homicide, or at least a justifiable attempted homicide. And if you think I'm pulling shit out of my ass, no. A cop in Arizona, was it Tempe or Phoenix? I can't remember. It was definitely a cop in Arizona. I think it was Tempe or Phoenix. Ran a guy over when he was walking down the street after the cop had received a report of a man with a gun shooting at people. Why get out of the car and shoot him when you're already behind the wheel of a 1,500 or at least 1,500 pound or at least half ton absolute smart bullet, right? I cannot sit here and judge the cop badly, and he had a perfect shot at that. No background targets, perfect backstop. He could have kept on going right through that brick wall. The brick wall would have stopped the car. I'm 1,000% convinced that brick wall would have, or stone wall really, would have stopped the car. There would have been damage to the wall. Yeah, okay. But the damage to the shooter would have been absolute, permanent, and total. Matter of fact, as I say this now, I can't remember. Did that guy survive? I don't remember. Doesn't matter now. That was a justifiable use of force homicide or attempted homicide. Excusable is state sanctioned. Military is usually listed as excusable, but more to the point, executions, hanging, gas chamber, firing squad, whatever the method your state uses, that is an excusable homicide. All right, so when you sifted all of those out, the U.S. only came out to about 1,500 gun murders for 2017. Well, that's still quite a few, right? Britain had 600 gun murders for 2017. Now, okay, well that's and let's get a little generous here. Well, actually, let's not. 600 is less than half of what the United States had, right? The United States also has 10 times the population. Oh. Yes, you didn't think about that, did you? I'm getting corrected here. Port Arthur is in Tasmania. There's a reason Tasmania is left. It's often left off map charts. By the way, okay. My understanding is it was in Australia, but Tasmania, I guess, was part of Australia. But okay, I stand corrected. I'm going to make that mistake a million more times, and I will stand corrected each and every time. I'm okay with my my errors. Okay, I've been going almost an hour and 10 minutes, or an hour and a half now. I can't stay on forever because I do have some other things I got to take care of. I do want to point something out. You notice this shirt, right? I first wore it for the second half of the E16A4 unboxing, right? Each of my shirts actually does have a separate meaning, right? This one is the one when I'm really talking about mechanics, right? And I wish I had more circumstances. The Star Trek shirts are for more the scientific and scholarly, whereas the blue shirts really are for when it's time to get down with the sickness. When it's time to accept that, hey, this is a time of violence, and we have to deal with it as such. The reason for blue is actually that it's the polar opposite of orange, and Mom's Demand Blood Money's shirt color is orange. I love that. It also just happens to be the primary color of the United States military. Most of the U.S. military uses a shade of blue. The Army recently went back to khaki, I think is the proper name, and the Navy still has their dress whites, but generally blue. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Oh, wait a minute. There's one more thing I wanted to hit on. For those of you that remember the Blastech E16 unboxing, for those of you that don't remember it, more to the point, what it was, I found a underfold stock that's actually developed from the stocks off of a AK AKS 74U, I think. I don't know AKs quite as well as I could, but that's the AK underfolder variant that they developed specifically for paratroopers. The company behind that figured out a way to put those onto AR-15s. And you know what? That was pretty brilliant. I got to give them credit. I found that. I reached out to Fix Bayonets. I said, hey, check this out. She said, oh, that's so cool, right? I offered to pay half if she let me play with the stock first. And okay, we had a deal. The Blastech E16 that you see in the video is actually a mock-up that I put together using the stock that she eventually got. I got called out several times for the photo, the thumbnail being real. Oh, no, that's a fake too. It's a mock-up. No, actually, that was the real gun. It was in her possession. She actually has 2 stamps on that. One, because the barrel is under the 16-inch requirement, and the second one is, and you can't tell from the photograph, but it is actually a burst fire compatible. So it's an assault weapon. It really is. Now, she has that class 7 that lets her do shit like that. She can also have rocket launchers and mortars and grenade launchers and shit like that. She doesn't, but she could. And since I don't know how all that works, I mean, Brent never got into that shit, so it's moot. But he did get into having the assault weapons because he had that testing facility, right? Since she inherited the businesses class 7, and she had passed all the backgrounds and everything else, she just kept going. So yeah, for those of you that were calling the photo out as being real, you're right. I lied to you. It is real. I don't have it. I don't know. Well, I know where she lives, so I could probably find it. But other than that, I don't know much. I assume that it's down in the basement of the barn, which when Brent took over this place, he dug a trench into the barn and put, actually I was down there once. It looked like what he really did was he put pellets over over the top of this trench, and then dump dirt onto that. I know it's not that simple. It can't be that simple. So, none of it would have lasted 6 months if that's what he really did. But I know Brent well enough to know that he made it look like that. At any rate, yeah, I let one of his secrets out. Fuck you. I know my friend well enough to know what he kind of did or how his mind would have worked. But at any rate, that's where he did the testing because he didn't want the neighbors hearing what he was doing. All right. He didn't want them knowing what he might have available. I also know that that's where he kept some of his more experimental weapons. All right. The stuff he was testing, all of it went down there and it stayed in the shipping box until he was ready to actually do the test. The stuff that he was working on for himself, yeah, it would all stay down there as well until he knew it was ready. He never actually told me what he would do with it, but I assume take it to the main house. Excuse me, because it was in California. That's the only basement. Earthquake zone. You don't want a basement in a place with earthquakes. So, having been in the main house, first of all, I never went above the living room and the entire lower deck, but I never went topside, and I've only really been through the entire lower deck once to go break up a fight that should never have been happening to begin with. And I've been in the guest house. It's a single deck building. If he hit him out there, he did a really awesome job. I'm willing to bet they're in the main house somewhere. I'm also prone to lie at times when it suits my purposes. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's I do know that not only did he keep the guns down in the basement, but it's because it was more convenient. The workshop was up in the barn, right? It was really just an old stall that he put all the working equipment in. It's more convenient just to keep it down in the basement because nobody can hear it down there, and it was really hard to get in there. All right. That was what you could call superior grade locks. Lockpicking lawyer would have approved. At any rate, those of you that, yeah, like I said, those of you that were calling out the photo is real, yeah, you caught me in a lie. was trying to protect my friend. It didn't work. And I finally got fed up with everybody calling the lie out because I was trying to protect my friend, especially since it's moot now. One of the things I wrote into Dataslav is that the length of a rifle barrel is 12 inches. If it's 12 inches or longer, you're fine. If it's 11 inches and 30 seconds, 11 and 30 seconds, it's too short, doesn't count. You got it. It's now considered a short barrel. Where did that number come from? It literally came from the United States Army itself. They got a carbine version of the M7 for frontline personnel who are not infantrymen, support personnel, bridge builders, medics, maybe radio men. All of those guys who pulling the trigger is not really their job. Their job is the other things that the trigger pullers need done right there at the front line so that they can go pull some triggers. All right. The U.S. Army set that 12-inch standard. But you know what? If that's the standard the Army goes with, that's the standard I'm going to go with. What do you want me to say? That's where that 12-inch comes from. The 18-inch, the 1934 Act originally had, nobody has ever been able to explain to me where this 18-inch number comes from. I've never heard an explanation. I have heard an explanation of how it got shortened to 16-inch. It was 18-inch. World War II came along. The United States government, through the Civilian Marksmanship Program, started selling M1 carbines. Those were 16-inch barrels. Uh-oh. We just illegally sold like 500,000 guns. Well, rather than go collect up those barrels or something else, we're just going to change the law. Does that sound familiar? We're just going to go change the law and make those all retroactively legal. That's how the 16-inch standard came to be. And okay, fine. You want to rewrite the law that you wrote to cover up your own fuck up? We investigated ourselves and found that we actually didn't do anything wrong because after the fact it was fine. What kind of bullshit is this? But whatever. Now that barrel on Fix's E16 was about an inch short of that 12-inch mark. It's a 11.5-inch barrel, something like that. One of the ways to extend the barrel length to make it legal is a system called pin and weld. It's where you put a pin in and you weld the pins into place or something like that. I have to confess that I don't know as much about this as I should. And okay, fine. I've got my limitations. Recently, an ATF agent decided it would be funny to put a pin and weld barrel into a vise and crank the shit out of it. And all of a sudden that made it an illegal short barrel rifle. Okay, well, here's a warning to ATF agents in the future. I can still, because it's not an amendment yet, I could still amend my proposal to address things like that. You will not like the amendment that I put on there. All right. Because the amendment that I would put on there is 12 inches at the time of use. So now you put a 4-inch, you put a 4-inch flash suppressor onto an 8.5-inch barrel, and you go shooting with it, it's legal. You take it back, you put it in your safe, and just before you put it in your safe, you take the flash suppressor off. Now it's a 9.5-inch barrel, and it's perfectly legal because it's not in use at the time. Would you prefer that scenario? Quit fucking around, quit playing games. That's one of the reasons why I do want to be the ATF director, because I know these bullshit games. And one thing I would absolutely have done is fired her already. She'd be looking for a new job. And I would do everything I could to blacklist her in any federal employment. You want to lie under oath, you're going to get treated like a perjurer. Oh. Did Carrie just accuse an ATF agent of perjury? Yes, I did. Flat out. That's all it was. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap it up at that point. Yeah. Finally. In the meantime, mandatory carry for ATF director. And keep calm and mandatory carry on.
The gun has played a critical role in history, an invention which has been praised and denounced, served hero and villain alike, and carries with it moral responsibility. To understand the gun is to better understand history.